Good morning, guys. Well, this is Anarchy Empowered, and I'm I'm doing a video introduction to what Anarchy Empowered is for our Patreon page. I've done this for several things, so it's old hat. But the reality is that our governments suppress our freedoms intentionally. Um, when a government actually decides to create laws so you can no longer live off the grid because you're in the city limit, I believe that's going too far. I believe that we have a rising homeless population because our society has figured out that if we raise the cost of living to such a point that you have to be working 80 hours a week just in order to make ends meet, to basically pay what the equivalent is of somebody's mortgage for a one-bedroom apartment, you're creating a class of indentured servants. And this class of indentured servants ultimately and inevitably will end up homeless. I work tirelessly on my days off to educate people about how to survive on the streets without breaking the laws. Now, there are certain laws that are next to impossible to avoid breaking because they are so stupid that you just can't avoid it. One of them being most cities have an ordinance within the city that you cannot camp within the city limits. Okay. Well, that puts a lot of pressure on the homeless individual because most of them don't have cars. Most of them depend on public transportation if they can actually get the money or the public assistance to get the fare for the bus. Otherwise, they're walking. And all the services that they are depending on happen to be within the city limits. So it traps them into this situation where I have to camp on the street because these services are only open for a couple hours. And that creates more of a problem because the police force will clean up their patrol beat by raiding homeless camps and putting whoever in jail. They look at it as doing the guy a favor because they can get a hot shower and something to eat, whatever. But what happens to all the stuff that they left behind? In Vancouver, there's a truck behind the police car that puts all the stuff that they left behind in the truck and it goes right to the dump. That means personal information, stuff like driver's licenses, birth certificates, social security cards, things that they would actually need to get a job are most likely lost, and that sets them back even further. So what Anarchy Empowered is trying to do is raise money to buy land where it's privately owned and educate we'll use Vancouver, Washington as the pilot program, but educate the police force not to take them to jail necessarily, but to bring them to this location so they can camp. And we offer services so they can actually further their lives and get out of the hamster wheel and move on with their life. Now, there are two classifications of the homeless individual. Sociologists refer to them as the chronically homeless and the situationally homeless. The situationally homeless maybe got sick, couldn't afford rent that month, and they got evicted because they weren't working. They may even still have a job. Those guys are easy to work with because all they really want is shelter. The chronically homeless are the ones that refuse to let go of their addictions. The ones that would prefer to be on the street, freezing, wet, cold, and miserable, because that way nobody is forcing them to stay away from the drugs. There's not a whole lot you can do with these people. However, I have seen cases over the years where they get motivated to clean up because somebody next to them was able to actually succeed. So by helping the guy next to him, we might be helping a group of people. This is what Anarchy Empowered is all about. And we need help. We fund a lot of what we do just out of working 40 hours a week and putting our own personal finances toward the cause. But there's a lot of people that need help. So any help that anybody can give us is always appreciated. If you want to volunteer, we have many ways to do that. Just go to anarchyempowered.com, and we set up things that way. We hold food drives and donation fairs where people can bring by whatever they don't need and we put a use to it. We don't do the goodwill thing where we just sell it secondhand. We actually find somebody that can legitimately use it and put it to good use again. That also means storage costs. We have 2 private storage units that are used for canned goods and clothing and whatever. That equals to about $200 a month. So it does cost money for our services to actually keep going. Donate, volunteer, spread the word. Spreading the word is even better, because the more people that realize what we're trying to do and the points that we're trying to make, the weaker the hold of the local government on our culture actually is. Basically, our government has just gotten too big, it's gotten corrupt, and people are homeless because of it. The rising cost of rent in the Vancouver area was artificial. I sat in on a meeting with the city council once, where they actually invited real estate people from California to come up here for the sole purpose of increasing the population, hoping that new money would come in. Bull. They don't care about new money because they voted down the max on the bridge. When they voted down the max on the bridge, they turned down hundreds of thousands of dollars a month of potentially new income for small businesses in the Vancouver area that comes across the bridge every day. It's a stupid move that they sold to the people because people were ignorant and actually started believing in crime comes with the subway idea. Now, crime comes with any mode of transportation. But if you actually look at the demographics and facts of like New York and Chicago and London, the reality is that the most profitable businesses in the area happen to be right next to the foot traffic generated by the public transportation systems. So, yeah, all that is total BS. Anarchy Empowered is all about the education of the people to free themselves from the bondage that our government puts on us. Our government puts bondage on us by tax levies, by forcing us to live in establish shelters that have to be taxed. That's why it's illegal to camp within the city limits, because the people that are camping, a lot of them have jobs. Guess what? They're taking taxes away from the city because that is a potential renting situation where that the owner has to pay the taxes. Well, if a owner doesn't have a resident, he still has to pay the taxes. He just can't do it as easily. It's all a cascading effect that has been going on from the dawn of man. It's time to break the cycle. Society has to change. Thank you.